we're here to do my November wrap up. I hope you will give me a little bit of leeway since it was 2 months ago at this point that I read some of these books, but I will do my best to give you my full thoughts on them. The first book I finished in November was Without Mercy by Lisa Jackson. I had never picked up a full Lisa Jackson book. The only other book I read by her was actually co-authored with a couple different people. I believe that was called like Left for Dead, and it was mediocre at best. This book, also mediocre. I gave it 2 stars. This was about a girl and her sister. The sister ends up at this boarding school, or like kind of like this boot camp style school. She gets sent away. She calls her older sister up and says like, hey, things are fucked here. Get me out of here. And so the sister decides to go undercover as a teacher because she is a teacher in real life, and so she just like gets hired at the school to try and see if her sister's fears are warranted or if her sister is just being a drama queen like she usually is. This book just like didn't have a lot going for it. I would compare this actually almost identically to like an SVU episode, but like not a good one, not a particularly engrossing one. SVU loves their boarding school sexual assault things, and this definitely had some of that. There's like a psychotic priest, I think, involved, possibly. There might be a secret society. I'm just remembering bits and pieces. I do remember the ending. The ending was memorable, but the rest of this book was very mediocre. I did not care about the main character. I did not care about her love interest, who is like an undercover agent at this school because of like some weird things that are going on. Was a missing girl in the past. I didn't enjoy it. I gave it 2 stars. I don't know if I'll pick up something from Lisa Jackson in the future. I kind of don't think I will. This had pretty good ratings on Goodreads, and so I believe that this might be some of her better work, and it just feels a little bit too much like a regular, mediocre procedural. The next thing on this list is another 2 stars, and that's You Can't Catch Me by Catherine McKenzie. So this is a thriller about a girl whose identity gets stolen. The main character figures out pretty quickly like what's happened, that her identity's been stolen. It turns out that this girl has done this before to other people with her name, I believe. Like these are all, she ends up contacting some of these other people who all have her name and who've all had this happen to them in the past, and they all try to like band together, figure the case out and figure out who's doing this and why and to stop them. I just didn't find it particularly interesting. The ending, you'll see coming. It's just like there was nothing engrossing about any of this. The main character makes a lot of dumb choices. And there are just so many better thrillers out there, really. So many. The next thing I read was The Croning by Laird Barron. This was so frustrating. So this is a horror novel that, Jesus Christ, how do I sum up this horror novel? Something to do with paleontology and a married couple. A weird trip to Mexico? And something ancient. That's a horrible explanation, I know, but this book defies explanation. I couldn't tell you really what happened throughout a lot of it because the first part of the novel is so much different than the middle and so much different from the end. The first part I was enjoying, although it was a little racist, gotta say. This couple goes on this trip to Mexico, I think, and they're very much in love. She is this like famous archaeologist, and she kind of gets called away to go to some like amazing dig nearby, and the husband's kind of upset because she doesn't come home after 24 hours, so he goes on this adventure to find her and gets in a whole lot of mischief, whole lot of trouble with some dangerous men and such, and some wild shit happens. They end up back together, and then we like go forward in the future into part 2, which just involves this married couple and their daily life. And this part was boring as fuck. Like nothing happened. There are a lot of horror novels that do this thing where it's about just like your average Joe and their slow unraveling and psychological something's wrong, etc. Except like I don't know, this wasn't doing that for me very well. Like I just thought it was boring. And then the third part happened, and what? If the third part had been more in the rest of it, I would have loved this. Like, the third part was aces. The rest, I don't know what to do with. Like, the first part, I would give 3.5 stars. The second part I gave a 1 star, and then the ending I would give like a 4 star, and like I don't know what to do with that, so I gave the whole book 2 stars because what? Okay, so the next thing I read, I just want to preface this by saying, like, I know on this channel I have talked shit about Stephen King, like a little bit, just a tiny, just a tad. For whatever reason, I got talked into reading Dolores Claiborne. I can tell you why. It was Katie Colson's fault. I watched her video and she convinced me. Damn it, I really liked it. How did that happen? I really ended up enjoying this. The audiobook is so good. And that's the thing. I have realized, oh yeah, by the way, I ended up reading like 2 more Stephen King things. I don't want to talk about it. Stephen King by audiobook is the way to go. This was such a good audiobook, and it is very much a character study of Dolores Claiborne, and fuck, she reminds me so much of my grandma. Like, I love her. Like, she is a woman who takes no shit, but like, she had to get there, you know? She did put up with some shit for a while, and it changed her. And now she's willing to do what needs to be done, and she's just sitting there telling you her life story. And I don't know, this was really good. If I had read this, it would have been excruciating. Like, there's no way. I would have put it down at page like 30. Like, I would have hated it because it is just one long monologue. It is just this woman telling you her story. She's actually telling the police officers her story, but still, it's just that. And I could never read that. So definitely say the audiobook is the way to go because she is really just talking to you, it feels like, and it was so good. I love a vengeful woman. What can I say? Next, I read The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Dalila Harris. I really enjoyed this. Right off the bat, I'm gonna tell you I gave this 4 stars. Oh, did I mention I gave Dolores Claiborne 4 stars? Okay, sorry. 4 stars for that, 4 stars for this. This is about a woman, I want to say her name is Hazel, and if it is, that is like multiple times now I have remembered characters' names in books I read. Who is she? Revived, apparently, and remembering characters' names. If Hazel's not her name, I'm gonna feel like an idiot. But regardless, it is about this main character who works at a company where she is the only black girl until all of a sudden, one day, a new woman comes into work and she is the other black girl, as the book is titled. Was it her who was named Hazel? Now, she is very excited for this moment. She mentions that she has always been waiting for this because she hated being the only black girl who worked at this company. So when this girl shows up, she immediately befriends her, and things start off really well. They click, but then things start to get a little weird, and she can't tell if this girl is messing with her, if they're actually friends, like really what's going on. There are some suspicious things happening, and let me tell you, this was a ride. I had no idea where this was going. Like, I really love the ending. It is fucked up in so many ways, but like, and like not fucked up in like a gruesome way. It's fucked up in a social, political, emotional way. And I just feel like it was so clever and smart, and yeah, I really, really like this book. I can't speak to cultural representation or anything like that, but I love the way it talks about like not feeling black enough, you know, wanting to be friends with this girl, but also comparing herself and finding herself wanting. I just thought this was really great. I will totally read more from this author because, like, yeah, 4 stars, really, really good. The next thing I read was actually my first buddy read with my friend Amber, and that was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. Now, I feel like everyone knows what this is about because I am the last person on frickin' BookTube to read it. This is about a doctor who is trying to get this woman to speak. She murdered her husband several years ago and has not spoken a word since. This psychiatrist comes in and he believes he's gonna be the one to crack the case, to finally get her to talk and to find out just why she did this. I can understand why people like it. The reveal works if you haven't seen this reveal a lot, and I feel like I've seen this reveal so often lately. Or not the reveal, the mechanism used. There's just like certain things that were done in this book that I have seen time and time and time again lately, and maybe it's just because I'm reading so many thrillers. This is the way they're pulling off twists, is this one way, and it's being done in every freaking book I read lately. And so like, it's just not as surprising as it normally would be because I just keep seeing it time and time again. I found this book pretty unenjoyable to read because I just like hated the main character. And honestly, when I finished it, like I didn't have a lot to say about it. I didn't think that much of it. I thought it was okay. So I did give it 3.5 stars. Like, it's not a bad book. Obviously, people freaking love it. I just found it okay, and there were definitely things that I found lacking. I'd probably actually bump that down to a 3-star, to be honest, because I don't know, there's just something about it that I found so off-putting, and not in an interesting way, and not in a fun way, just in an unenjoyable way. The next thing I read has a story to go with it. So I like to buy my niece, Jade, a comic book every once in a while. She's in high school, and I never know like what she's into reading or whatever. It went over really well last time because I bought her Heartstopper and she loved it. So I was like, let's do that again, buy a comic book. And so I looked at what was the top 10 comic books of the year on Chapters, which is like our Canadian book site. And I saw this book called Stray Dogs. And I was like, that's cute. It's got dogs in the title. I should probably buy her that. It did say it was a horror, but she's actually at the age where she's getting into horror. And I was like, how horrific can it be? It has dogs in the title. Well, thank fucking God, I read it first. I almost didn't. I had it in my freaking cart. And then I saw that it was at my library on Hoopla, and I read it first. And oh my God. If I had bought her this for Christmas, I would have been buying her therapy for her birthday. Like, this was horrific. So Stray Dogs is about a bunch of dogs who realize that their owner is a murderer. I'm not gonna go into much more other than saying that this is a one-off and it will traumatize you. That's it. Like, I don't even know how to rate this. I never rated it because, like, I mean, I guess it accomplished what it set out to do. It's definitely horror. I am literally scarred for life. So 5 stars, like, I don't know. But also, like, I wanted to scream and cry the entire time. So, yeah, so I don't know. Take that for what you will. If you are at all squeamish to animal abuse, I would not read it. I wish I could unread it. The next thing I read was All These Beautiful Strangers by Elizabeth Klehfoth. I absolutely loved this book. This book is about a main character whose name I'm not going to remember. Let's face it, the streak is over. I'm not going to remember a single other name for the rest of this video. We both know it. Her mom went missing a very long time ago. She has vague memories of that night, but she never really knows what happened. This is now like many years later. She's going to school and she gets kind of wrapped up in this secret society type thing at her very privileged boarding school. She's having to compete in this thing called The Game that takes place all year round, having to do with the secret society. You know, she's got this romantic interest. There's some other murder mystery elements, I believe, that happened at the school. Like, someone was murdered in the past and that was never solved as well. Like, there is a lot that this book is trying to do. There's so many things it's trying to balance, and I feel like it does such a great job at balancing them all, which is so rare, especially in a young adult novel. I loved everything about this book. Like, truly, I was shocked by how much I like this. I've read so many other books like this that just don't pull off any of it. A recent one from this year that I read was These Vengeful Hearts, which like was just so mediocre, and that's what I was expecting from this. But no, this was so good. I feel like it handles privilege really well. Like, our main character is so fucking privileged, and like, she's aware of it, but yet she's still kind of an asshole about it, but in such a believable, authentic, teenaged way. Like, I don't necessarily think you are supposed to like this character. I just think you're supposed to find her interesting, which I did. She has, of course, this inner like turmoil about doing the right thing or not, doing the right thing for her or not. I love the things that it was doing with the love story because I hate YA love stories, and of course there is one shoved in every single book, and The one that was in this book, I feel like was done so well because it actually added to the story. It wasn't just there to add in a romance, it was there to say something, and therefore I enjoyed it. I felt like it was handled really well because this guy that she's dating is also like another guy with a lot of privilege, and it allows him to get away with a lot. And I love this book so much. I feel like this book was probably popular a couple years ago, like when it came out, but if you haven't read it, definitely pick it up. I feel like this is a true gem. It was just a really good one, especially in this secret society sort of YA genre, because you see them all the time and they rarely live up to your expectations. The next thing I read was That's Not What Happened by Kody Keplinger. This is a book in which there's a school shooting, and our main character was in the bathroom when her best friend was shot and killed. Basically, the story is about how there is a story that has been told about what her friend did and what her friend said in her final moments that isn't what actually happened. And it's kind of about the stories we tell ourselves about these tragedies, about the heroes and the villains, and how often the real story is a lot messier. I like that in this book, they blur out the shooter's name. Like, obviously this is a fictional school shooting, but so often in real life, in real school shooting situations, these people want their name out there, they want that power, and so I liked that in this book they took that away and, you know, made an example of that. I feel like it's an example that I wish more people would follow in real life. I love that Philip DeFranco does that. And so this book really wasn't about the shooter. It was about all of the people who were impacted by this shooting. It was nice to see a school shooting novel that wasn't about the school shooter in any way, that wasn't even really trying to figure out why this person did this horrible thing. It was more about everybody else in the community and the way the community was impacted, as well as just the ways that rumors and stories and legends get told and misconstrued, and the people who need them and why. I also really liked that it talked about how making an angel of a person who died kind of takes away who they really are. So often people turn into a martyr. People will never say a bad word about them again, and they will talk about them as if they were like this perfect epitome of loveliness, and that takes away who they really were, because nobody is perfect. Like, nobody is that perfect person, and like, that's not interesting. Like, talk about the interesting bits, talk about who they actually are, and I feel like that this book did a good job of that. The main character gets so frustrated because nobody will talk about who her best friend actually was. Now, all that being said, I feel like I just said a lot of nice things, and I only gave this book 3 stars, and part of that was because she doesn't talk about who her best friend actually was. Like, that, so much of this book revolved around her being angry that people weren't telling the truth, and yet we never got to know who her best friend was, like, at all. We got to know a little bit about her and her love interest and other people in the town, the community, but we actually never got a good picture of who her best friend was as a person. And so, like, I feel like that was a huge drawback to the book. It's also just YA, and it's, like I said, a lot of YA doesn't hit the same for me anymore. I didn't care too much about the love interest in this. It, like, just wasted time, in my opinion, in this book. I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was okay. I thought it did some things really well, and then just a lot of other things mediocrely. And the next thing I read was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. Once again, I am late to the party. And let me just start off by saying I gave all 3 of these books 5 stars. All 3 of these books are flippin' phenomenal. I adore them so much. This is like right up there with Truly Devious, except these are better. Like, okay, but I want to talk about them individually because I feel like every book does something different. So this is about, why can't I remember this girl's name? It was so pithy and specific. Damn it. Pim? It's on the tip of my tongue, I know. Pip! So our main character, Pip, is a girl who decides to solve a murder mystery. There is a boy in her town who committed suicide and is basically been accused of murdering this girl who was his girlfriend at the time. I believe she actually went missing and was never found, but because he was found as an apparent suicide with a note saying that he did it, everyone just, you know, wrapped up the case and said, like, clearly he did it. and she decides to investigate this and try to figure out what actually happened, because clearly that's not it. I mean, otherwise there wouldn't be a book here. It wasn't what I was expecting, I will say that. This is like Veronica Mars meets the Louise Renaissance books. What are those called? Crap. The Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snocking books meets Veronica Mars. I know that sounds so weird. In this first book especially, I just feel like there's a lot of Britishisms. There's a lot, like the girl is just a little bit quirky and like different, and this first book was definitely pretty fun and easy, and despite the dark content, or like the fact that she's trying to solve a murder, because it's not until later on in the book that she has to start dealing with the real consequences of this investigation. And obviously that's when the books took a turn, and it did it so well. I love the love interest, and that's like not something I usually say about teenage stories, but like this book did it perfectly. They are the cutest. I love them so much. I will say I don't think the reveals of any of these books are my favorite, but I love the writing so much. I love the characterizations so much, and the developments, like the character arcs are so flippin' good. I did read the second one in this month as well, so I'm just gonna talk about the second one now, which is called Good Girl, Bad Blood, which I also gave 5 stars. Our main character is always dealing with the ramifications of the things that have happened. Like, you really see the way it wears on her. Like, you see that she is a teenage girl handling these massive things. And in this book, she's really dealing with the consequences of her first investigation. There are things that she like really can't forgive herself for, because she like feels like they are her fault for undertaking this, that her loved ones have gotten hurt because of these things. And then she gets dragged into the second investigation because one of her friends has a brother who's gone missing. And she feels like she's the only one who can help, because of course the police will not take anything freaking seriously. We see her getting just angrier and angrier, and I love a book about female rage, and this book gets it so right. The way that her anger is just building at the injustice that women have to face. The fact that like all the evidence can be laid out before you of the trauma that women face, and the rich men can still get away with whatever the fuck they want. This book has my heart. Like, this series is just so good. I love it so much. The next thing I read was Red Seas Under Red Skies by Scott Lynch. This is the second book in the Gentleman Bastard series. I listened to this on audiobook because for me, that is the only way to go with this series. The way it is written confuses the shit out of me and kind of puts me to sleep, to be honest. It's very much like broken up with a ton of flashbacks, but like in the weirdest ways that just like don't compute with my brain. I like these characters a lot. I gave this book 4 stars, but I don't know if I have a ton to say about it. I'm not a fantasy girl. This book was kind of a pirate story. These characters are dealing with the aftermath of the first book, trying to get their shit together so that they can become the criminals they once were. The best parts of the book are the interactions between the main 2 characters. They have this wonderful friendship that you can't help but like love, and like the rest of the book I don't care about. I'm gonna read the 3rd book just cause I had an Audible credit and I like got it. And I know that seems like a weird thing to give 4 stars for, but like I enjoy it while I'm listening to it, and then once it's over, I just don't think that much about it. This isn't like the Six of Crows books where I've fallen in love with every character so completely. They're just books that I enjoy and put down, and I enjoy a good heist novel. But these ones might be a little bit too complicated for me. Alright, the next thing I read, I actually have a physical copy of, and that was The Lucky Ones by Tiffany Reisz. I so rarely have the books next to me. I'm a liar. I had the silent patient, and you can't catch me right here. Alright, just making more work for myself by having to add in thumbnails. Sure. Or covers, whatever, words. The Lucky Ones by Tiffany Reisz. I love Tiffany Reisz. She is one of my favorite authors. Normally she writes romance novels. She wrote my favorite romance series ever, the original Sinner series. This is a romantic thriller. This is about our main character who all of a sudden is going through this breakup with this guy she's been seeing for 6 years. She's kind of his mistress, but regardless, they're breaking up. It's a big deal for her, and so she doesn't really know what to do with herself. She's feeling really lost, and all of a sudden she gets this letter from her old adoptive family that says that their father is dying and that they would love it if she would come home one last time to say goodbye. She was there for 5 years, from the time she was 7 till the time she was 12. Someone maybe possibly pushed her down the stairs, and her really much older aunt comes and like takes her away from that place, and she never sees these people again until this point. Tiffany Reisz, I just love the way she writes. There's so many lines in here that just like cut me like to the core. There's just something about the way she weaves words together, and it's not like she's lyrical or anything like that. Like, it's not flowery writing, it's just, she just knows how to put things just right. I really enjoyed the main character in this. I really connected with her. One of the things I love that Tiffany Reisz does is that she really walks the line of taboo. There is a relationship in this with her like possible adopted brother. They're not related, obviously, and she left when she was 12, so you get to decide for yourself like how taboo it is, but it's there. They talk about it a lot, the fact that they are kind of related, and that's just something Tiffany Reisz does in a lot of her books. She likes to really toe that line and make you feel just a bit uncomfortable, but make you feel kind of hot about it. What she writes is romance, and to be honest, the romance wasn't doing it totally for me. I thought it was interesting, but not interesting enough. I didn't love these characters enough to give this like 5 stars or anything like that. The thing about the original Sinner series is I love every character in those books, whereas I like this main character, but the love interest was just kind of okay. But I really love the ending to this. It's a frequent theme I see, and I enjoy it every time I see it, and I think it was done well here. I actually think it was done especially well here. I like when there are characters who you like who do bad things, and you then have to like reconcile with that. Reconcile with the fact that someone you love can also be someone terrible. It also said some things about like society and the people who are valued in it. I gave this book a 3.5, but like it's a book that stuck with me, and it's a book I've thought about a lot since then, so I do definitely recommend it. How are there still so many books left? Baby Teeth by Zoje Stage. This is about a mother with a child who may be evil. I heard a lot of mixed opinions on this. I loved it. I listened to this on audiobook, and I just thought this was really good. I think I gave it 4.5 stars. I just thought this was really good. I will say, like, there are no twists, there are no reveals. This is just a very straightforward story about an evil child and the lengths this child will go to be a brat, basically. Like, this is like a look inside the mind of a sociopath who's only 7. And I think that's kind of fun. Like, I don't know why this got such bad ratings. I enjoy a good character study, and I believe that that's what this was. I think that this did a really good job at showing the mind of a budding sociopath, and as well as including the little bits of childlike thought processes. Because yes, she is like wise beyond her years, but there are moments where you can clearly see that she still thinks like a child, and she doesn't understand necessarily like why things are happening the way they are. Or at least why they're not happening the way she thinks they will or should. I also really liked the mother's portrayal as just like a woman who wants to love her child, but like this child will not let her, and every time she thinks that something like is finally going right, it just feels like everything's ripped away and she's losing her sanity all over again. The father in this is fucking useless. Like, you will be so mad at this man. And like, useless in a totally kind of normal way, because he just wants to believe the best in his daughter, and he doesn't get to see all the shitty things that she's doing while he's at work, but like, oof. Another thing I read was The Passengers by John Mars. This is about a social media event in which a bunch of strangers get trapped in their self-driving cars, and one by one, they are going to be murdered until only one of them survives. This is the second John Mars book I've read. I read the one, and to be honest, didn't really like it. I just found it very, very predictable. Whereas this one I liked a little bit more. It still wasn't my absolute favorite. I just think his things are a little predictable. But they're fun. They're easy. If you're looking for just like a fast-paced, decent time, then I do think that they're fun to pick up. My problem with them is like, I want more of the characters, and that's not what you're getting here. You're never going to know who these people are. You're going to get a very 2D image of who these people are. I enjoyed the ending to this, sort of. I enjoyed the explanation to parts of this because I do think it paints a realistic look at what we're going to have to deal with self-driving cars and the companies that make them and the companies that make the software that run them. I thought that part was really interesting, but I thought it went on for way too long. Like, I kept thinking the book was about to end and be over, and then like another scene would happen, and I was like, what is this adding here? Like, it just I didn't like the addition. But I'd say like 80% of this was pretty good. I gave it 3 stars. It's like one of those books that I didn't love it, but I would still recommend it if you're looking for something that'll get you out of a reading slump. Something that you can just like devour in a day. The next thing I read was The 12 by Justin Cronin. This is the sequel to The Passage by Justin Cronin, which is basically about this vampire plague. It's an epic, it's a battle between good and evil. There's this character named Amy who has lived for 1,000 years or something, and like it spans a whole crap ton of time. There are these 12 vampires, that's why they're called the 12. They used to be inmates. This is like some government program to make like super soldier type things. It's a whole thing. I really enjoyed the first book, which was surprising because I don't enjoy epics. And I actually read it physically. Like, it was like 900 pages long. I read it physically and actually enjoyed it. That's a miracle. I gave it 4 stars. I listened to this book audibly, and I did not like this at all. I gave this 2 stars. I found this so disappointing. I did not care about like anything that was happening. I didn't care about any of the characters that they decided to focus on. I just did not enjoy this. I thought this was such a disappointing sequel. The next thing I read was Later by Stephen King. How did I end up doing this? I don't know. I love Dolores Claiborne so much, I was like, let's test this theory of Stephen King by audiobook. And this one was a mediocre one by Stephen King. I gave this 3 stars. This is about a boy who can see dead people and can communicate with them. He can ask some questions and they cannot lie. And this is a thing that gets him into some trouble. This is definitely more on the crime horror section of things. This was just okay. I definitely see how this could be compared to Joyland. This boy is growing up doing this coming of age thing, but during a very weird time. Like having a very weird experience that has to do with the paranormal. And this is something you could listen to pretty quickly and walk away giving it 3 stars. Like, I can't see a lot of people loving this, but I can't see a lot of people hating it either. It's just okay. He talks a lot about this kind of like evil force that he's now dealing with because he needed a favor from it, and kind of felt like that went nowhere. So this just wasn't giving anything, really. Next, we have another 5-star, They Never Learn by Layne Fargo. This is another buddy read I did with my friend, and I love a bad bitch, okay? A woman with anger who takes it out on men. Give them all to me. This is about a woman who kills men. She works at a university and she kills the men that rape women. That's it. Love that premise. Love what they did with it. I will say it's pretty simple. Like, it's not a complicated story. It's a very simple writing style, very to the point. But like, there was just so much satisfaction in reading this book. Even the ending, which I thought like everything tied up a little too neatly. This is obviously a world in which we don't exist. This is a world where the men who rape women actually have consequences. Like, I truly believe that this is really just the ultimate women's revenge fantasy, and so maybe it's okay that the ending to this is a little too neat. Will say, like, the twist didn't work because, like I said, like, I've seen this like a million times at this point. This is truly just the same twist I've seen in so many thrillers. Not the twist, the plotting device, I guess. Like, I've just seen it so many times at this point, and so I saw it coming literally from page 1, and that was fine though. I liked reading it that way, actually. It gave it more of a character study feel, which I always appreciate. I will take a character study thriller over a plotty, twisty thriller any day of the week, so I give this 5 out of 5 stars. Loved it. I also love what they did with kind of the main like villain character, because I just thought that played out so well. That was the one thing that like got me. in the perfect way. The book wanted me to feel a certain way about that person. I did, and it got me. And the last book on this ridiculously long list is Kill Switch by Penelope Douglas. I've had mixed feelings about Penelope Douglas's work in the past. This is like the freaking 6th or 7th book I've read from her. This is the 3rd book in the Corrupt series, the Devil's Night series, about a group of guy friends who go around and play pranks. They're like the hot shit in the town. Eventually they like get put away in jail for some stupid shit they did when they were kids. They get out when they're adults and they all have some woman that they want to come back and like get revenge on. This book I gave 4 out of 5 stars. This one focused on Damien, who is the worst of the bunch, the psychopath of the bunch, and this obviously gave him a backstory that kind of explains some of his actions, because of course they want to try and soften him up, because like how else are you going to forgive some of the shit he's done? The answer is you kind of can't. I heard like so many people be like, oh my god, he's such a cinnamon roll. No, he's not. Like, he's not at all. To me, the shit he's been through does not excuse the shit he did, but I did appreciate the relationship between him and the female character in this book, whose name I also cannot remember. His love interest and the main character in this book, she is blind, and felt like it was actually handled pretty well. I obviously can't speak on that. I am not the authority on that. But I felt like she was always a strong character who was not used as inspiration porn, and she was not used as like some tragic figure either who needed this man to like get her through life. Penelope Douglas actually balanced her character really, really well, and I appreciated that. Seeing any decent disability rep in a book, always a good thing. I will say the one thing I wish for was more interaction between Damien and Will. I feel like they always give me just a little bit, and I just want more, because their interactions and their relationship is the most interesting to me. Anyways, that was my November wrap up. I hope you liked this video, and I hope you come back soon. Bye.